The case statement is another control structure that's very similar to the if-then sort of control structure, except that we're going to use a little bit less syntax. It's a little bit faster, but it's really only used when a certain condition is equal to. So we can't necessarily use less than or greater than. So it's basically, if your variable equals this, do something. If your variable equals something else, and then otherwise. So this is the form. So in MATLAB, you start with switch, and x is just going to be the variable. So whatever's stored in x, that's what you're comparing to. So in case x is equal to whatever's right here, then you perform this statement. And then if it's equal to whatever's here, and then whatever's equal here, then you do these statements. And then if for some reason it's not neither of them or none of those, then you just have a blanket statement for everything. So just as an example of how to use the case statement, let's write some Matlab code. We're going to prompt the user enter a list of numbers. Then we're going to ask the user to enter A to find the average of the list, S to find the standard deviation, H for the histogram, and M for the maximum of the list. And we're going to print that result to the screen. So first thing, let's get rid of all this. And let's just go ahead and get the list in there. So let's define that as maybe, let's call it N. And we're going to input a list of numbers. So we're going to enter a list of numbers. And in the form of N1, N2, N3 as a row vector, essentially. Right? So that way, whoever's entering it knows the specific form they have to get. Now, we're going to say, let's let X, or actually we could just say C for maybe choice. Let's say C is going to be equal to input. And let's say enter, and I think it was A for average. And I think it was S for standard deviation. I'm going to pull it up again really quickly just to remind myself. S for deviation, H for histogram, M for maximum. All right, so S for standard deviation, and we had H for histogram, and we had M for maximum. And now let's use the switch statement. So we're going to switch on C. All right, so basically what we're doing is we're saying we're just looking at what C is. Okay, so if for some reason case, and let's just say A for the average, then we are going to print F. We're going to say the average of the list is %F. Then let's do it /n, and we're going to say mean of n. Right. And remember what that does is that says that it's going to print out %F, which is our average. So it's computing the average right here. So we don't necessarily need another variable. We're just computing it right away. Case. And actually, we can just cut and paste a few times. So let's just cut and paste it just for brevity. And so if it was S, we're going to say standard deviation. Not if the list, but of the list. And remember the form for standard deviation was STD. And then if we need a histogram, H, then we're just going to print out the histogram. So we're going to say histogram of N. And then finally, if we get an M, and this time we're just going to say otherwise. And let's just assume, well, actually, let's just go ahead and say case M, then the maximum we list. We're going to say max. Right? And then we're going to end this. Right. So let's see what happens with this if we go ahead and execute it. So I'm going to run. Hopefully no errors. All right. So it says to enter a list of numbers. So let's just do a really easy list. Let's just do 1, 2, 3. And let's find the average. And we know the average of 1 plus 2 plus 3 is going to be 2. Right? And notice when you input a character, for Matlab, you have to put the accents or the quotation marks. And so we do that, and we know that the average of the list is 2. All right, so it looks like it works. Let's run it again and find the standard deviation. So let's just do 1, 2, 3 again. And let's say S. And standard deviation of the list is 1, which is not surprising because it's 1, 2, 3. It's in increments of 1. All right, let's get a histogram. So I'm going to do this. Just that way we can get a nice histogram out of it. And let's say H. And this might take a minute because generally whenever we generate a graph for the first time, it might take a moment for this to go through and produce the histogram. So we'll just be patient within reason. And looks like our histogram's coming up. Yay. All right. So this is our nice histogram that we have in here. I didn't put any axes or anything like that or labels, but that's fine. Didn't ask to. And then let's just find a maximum real quick just to show that it works. So another basic list. And maximum list is 3. All right, so all the functions work. That's great. Now, before we conclude, I just want to illustrate what happens if you enter something, a choice. Well, let's do some errors just first of all and see what happens. So first of all, let's just say I do without the brackets, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it's going to give you a not so nice message. It's going to tell you it's unbalanced, etc. So you always want to do the brackets around your list. And then let's say for some reason I forgot the quotation marks around the M or the apostrophes. Then it's going to say unrecognizable function. So let's go ahead and do M. And it does the maximum. All right. One last thing I want to show you is what happens if you try a choice that's not in your control structure. So let's say control, or let's do accent B or something like that. So, and we do accent B. Now it shouldn't do anything, right? Because it's just going through all the lists, whatever's stored in C, which right now is going to be B, and it's not there. So it should just terminate the program, which it does. All right. So in the next video, we're going to start taking a look at being able to check for errors. All right. So what happens if for some reason a user enters like a negative number in for this? How can we just make sure that the user knows that they shouldn't do that? So that's going to be in our next video.